When Trump goes after the Pope, it looks like pure impulse, a guy who can't help himself, but around Trump are always people watching numbers: 9 months to midterms, 70 million Catholic voters, a 71% impeachment probability. Those numbers don't vanish because Trump feels like fighting. So the real question isn't whether he's impulsive, it's which cost he chooses to pay and when, because attacking the Pope and ignoring him aren't two mistakes, they're two different payment schedules. One buys him something now but costs him something later, the other protects what he needs now but starves him of what he needs then. The question is which one he picks and what it actually costs. When Trump attacks the Pope, something shifts in the room. His base doesn't see a man picking a fight with religion. They see a man pushing back against institutional power trying to tell him what to do. The frame becomes, the church is interfering in politics and Trump is the one willing to say it out loud. His supporters feel defended, not aggressive. That's the thing people miss. To them, he's not starting the fight, he's answering it. And the timing matters. 9 months out from midterms, you need your base moving, not thinking, not deciding, moving. A rally where Trump takes on the Pope does that. It crystallizes something. It makes people feel like their guy is willing to bleed for them, willing to take on enemies they can't name but absolutely feel. For the evangelical wing especially, the hardliners who have been with him since 2016, this is exactly what they came for. Not compromise, not diplomacy. Fight. That's the advantage. It's immediate. It's felt. It's the kind of energy that shows up in turnout models, and 9 months before an election where you're facing 71% impeachment odds, you need that energy more than you need almost anything else. But here's what attacking the Pope actually costs him, and most people never see it coming. The Catholic vote isn't one thing, it splits. You've got white Catholics, older, more conservative, the ones who have drifted toward Trump, and you've got Hispanic Catholics, the ones he actually pulled over in 2020, voters he spent years cultivating. They're not the same block, they don't move together. When Trump goes after the Pope, white Catholics might cheer, Hispanic Catholics go quiet, and that shift doesn't show up in polls for months, it shows up in voting booths. But there's something deeper. The U.S. Catholic bishops, the USCCB, they've never publicly backed Trump, but they've worked with Republicans for decades on abortion. It's an underneath thing, a deal that doesn't need words. Except when Trump keeps attacking the Pope publicly, those bishops face pressure from their own people to say something, to break their silence. And when they do, when they issue statements saying they're disheartened, that the Pope isn't Trump's rival, what Trump loses isn't votes. He loses organizational infrastructure. He loses the quiet channel that's been feeding him resources. The other cost is the news cycle. Every time Trump attacks the Pope, that becomes the story, not immigration, not the economy, not his message. The Pope. For 9 months, that frame repeats, and when the midterms come, he doesn't control the conversation anymore, his opponent does. He bought immediate energy, he paid for it with long-term positioning. Here's what ignoring the Pope actually gives him. When Trump doesn't respond, he sends a signal: you're not important enough for me to answer. That's not weakness in his world, that's positioning. It says he sets the agenda. The Pope speaks and Trump's already moved on to something else. That's the power move. And there's a structural piece. Those Hispanic Catholic voters he pulled in 2020, the ones he needs to hold, they don't want a religious war. They want a guy who fights on their terms: immigration, economy, strength. If Trump ignores the Pope, he doesn't threaten that coalition. He preserves it. Silence costs him nothing with them. Attack costs him everything. The moderate Catholic conservatives, the people sitting in the middle, they also stay put when Trump says nothing. They're not his base, but they're not hostile either. Ignoring keeps them neutral. Attacking pushes them away. For 9 months before midterms, that stability matters. He keeps the voters he has. He doesn't create new enemies within his own coalition. The energy might be lower, but the foundation stays solid. That's the advantage of doing nothing. You protect what you've already built. But ignoring has its own immediate cost, and it hits harder than people expect. Trump's base wants to see him fight, not think, not strategize. When the Pope says something and Trump doesn't respond, his supporters don't read it as strength, they read it as silence. And silence in that world means weakness. The conversations start internally first. Trump didn't even answer him. What's going on? That doubt spreads faster than you'd think. It doesn't break his base, but it cracks it. There's also the media piece. The Pope keeps talking, Trump keeps not responding. So the media fills the gap with a narrative. Trump is losing this one, the Pope got under his skin and he has no answer. That story repeats for 9 months. It gets layered into the broader narrative about his strength, his grip on power. When impeachment odds are already at 71%, that narrative weight matters, it compounds. But here's the hidden cost nobody talks about. Trump can publicly ignore the Pope all he wants. Behind the scenes, the White House still needs diplomatic channels with the Vatican. Ambassadors, quiet talks, the infrastructure that keeps relations functional. Except when Trump's public silence stretches too long, when it starts looking like contempt, the Vatican closes those channels first. Trump didn't choose isolation, but his silence forced it. He preserved his coalition, he lost his diplomatic tools. This is where both doors collapse into the same structure. Attack gives him immediate consolidation. His base mobilizes, energy rises. But 9 months of Trump versus the Pope in the news cycle means he loses organizational partnerships. The bishops go silent or break ranks, the diplomatic channel phrase, the conversation he controls isn't about what he wants it to be about. Ignore preserves his infrastructure, the coalition stays intact, the bishops stay quiet, the Vatican channel stays open, but his base starts asking questions. The media narrative becomes Trump is fading, the energy he needs to drive turnout softens. So it's not actually a choice between two different strategies, it's a choice about when you pay the cost. Attack by consolidation now, lose organizational depth later. Ignore protect infrastructure now, lose mobilization energy later. One costs him his machinery, the other costs him his momentum. Both are expensive. The only question is which bill he wants on his desk in September when midterms are 3 months away. So here's the forced choice. Does Trump spend the next 9 months consolidating his base, watching them move, feeling that energy, knowing that when October comes, the bishops have scattered, the diplomatic channels are frozen, and he's fighting midterms without the organizational depth he had before? Or does he preserve that infrastructure, keep the coalition stable, maintain the quiet channels, and walk into the final stretch with a base that's asking why he didn't fight, with media momentum against him, with the question of his strength sitting underneath everything? One way he has the crowd, the other way he has the machine. He can't have both.